The show starts in 3, 2, 1, go.
Good morning, CaneSport. It's March 28th, 2025. I'm Gary Ferman, the publisher of CaneSport.com, joined today by Stephen Wagner as we discuss the news of the day. No-show Dell. Man, am I happy this morning. They got a little bit of a relief. But, Stephen, I thought we would give everybody a little dose of Wags here today because it's a big weekend this weekend at the U. Some interesting changes to the calendar for recruiting in this 2026 cycle. And then, here we are in the third week of spring practice. This is a big deal. Saturday will probably be the most scrimmaging that the team has done so far this spring. I don't, Mario Cristobal's not calling it a scrimmage, but, they'll be in their second practice in full pads. And they are expected to do a lot of full speed work. I don't know if they'll be tackling to the ground. They've been trying to avoid injuries this spring and doing a lot of what they call, I think, thudding. But it will be the most extensive full contact work that they've had this spring, Saturday out there on the practice field. But the real significance of this weekend is what I guess they're calling the spring splash, Stephen, and that's this year's version of the Paradise Camp. It looks like the recruiting calendar has changed. July is the entire month is basically a dead period, and so things are accelerated quite a bit here during spring practice. And Miami decided to have this recruit barbecue this weekend and try to see if they could get all of the top prospects to come to campus and start trying to lock in some more commitments. And so just to set the stage for you guys, they presently have 6 commitments. Jordan Campbell, a 4-star linebacker out of Miami Carroll City. Jalen Waters, a 4-star cornerback out of Sefner Armwood High School upstate. Darion Coleman, a quarterback that is just wowing on the 7-on-7 circuit this year. He's out of Lakeland, Florida. He's committed. Javian Mallory, a Mark Fletcher clone, running back out of West Boca Raton High School. He's a 4-star. He's committed. And Ben Cognan, an offensive tackle out of Mineral City, Ohio, a really big 6'7", 270-pounder. He'll probably be 300 by the time he gets to college. Mario Cristobal starting to build that next generation offensive line at Miami that he's going to need because Maui Noah's out after this year. Cooper's out after this year. You got Brockemeyer at center. He's a 1-year loaner. Markel Bell also is another one. And so they're going to have to do some serious rebuilding on the offensive line. So big focal point in recruiting. Ben Cognan's in the fold. And then there's Camden Portis. You recognize the last name. That's Clinton Portis' son. He is a cornerback out of Charlotte, North Carolina, and he is committed. So Miami right now sitting there with 6 commitments. But that's only good enough for number 12 in the team recruiting rankings in the 2026 cycle, because some other teams have gotten off to a decent head start as well. I mean, I look at USC sitting there with 16 commitments already. That is unbelievable to be sitting here still in the month of March. Remember, signing day is in December, and they have 16 commitments, 10 of them 4-stars. And Clemson in the ACC has 12 commitments, 6 of them 4-stars. So, you're seeing schools make an early mark here in recruiting. And, Stephen, that sets the stage for you. Miami Hurricanes at 6 and counting. Huge weekend here coming up. Why don't you just take the floor and give us a synopsis of what's going to be going on in Coral Gables on Saturday?
Yeah, so Gary, you kind of alluded to it earlier, but Because of changes in the recruiting calendar, Miami is no longer going to be able to have that massive end of summer recruiting cookout that they've had pretty much every year since Mario Cristobal has gotten here. And, really is something that we've seen pretty much every major university that's really serious about recruiting do around the country. Every school has some version, some variation of this thing. But this year, Miami's not going to be able to have it. So what they did is they effectively moved it. From the end of July when there was a very brief quiet period. They went ahead and moved that up all the way until the weekend of March 29th, which is going to be this Saturday. And they are recruiting, or they are getting every recruit who is somebody and their freaking mothers down to campus this weekend. This is hands down going to be the biggest and most important unofficial visit weekend that Miami will host until we get to the fall football season. Until we actually start playing football, this is the biggest unofficial visit weekend Miami is going to have. Um, Kenai Pepe, the borderline five-star top 100 offensive tackle, one of the top offensive tackles on Miami's board. Heck, I would really argue that he's the most prioritized offensive lineman for Miami this cycle, who's not named Jackson Cantwell. They're going to be getting a bunch of dudes from IMG. Along like including Brett Kolajay, Janari Carr, a couple of interior offensive linemen who Miami definitely has some interest in, particularly Kolajay. I would argue that Miami has not prioritized an interior offensive lineman more than they've prioritized Kolajay. From what I have heard, they really do believe that he has an argument to be the best interior offensive lineman in the country. They are absolutely ecstatic about what he can potentially bring to the table. They're also going to be getting a ton of top Miami commits down. You mentioned Ben Congdon earlier; they'll be getting him down. They'll also be getting Jordan Campbell down, as you know. As well, I should say, as he says that he's locked in with Miami. However, we have seen him take a few unofficial visits here and there. He's continuing to flirt with some of these different programs, so that'll definitely be a visit that we're going to keep an eye on. Uh, it also sounds like Chris Henry Jr., the five-star Ohio State receiver commit from Mater Day, could get down to Coral Gables. Now, from what I heard, South Florida Express, the 7-on-7 team, is going to be playing in Texas this weekend. So whether or not Chris Henry actually is able to end up making the trip, I'm not totally sure. I haven't been able to get that 100% confirmed yet, but it does sound like he'll have a good chance. There's a good chance that he could be in Miami this weekend. Tomohini Topui, he's a defensive tackle, also from Mater Day, who recently committed, excuse me, who recently decommitted from Oregon. Top Miami priority for this cycle. Hurricanes have been really high on him, and that's something that I'm kind of taking note of in this cycle, because this collectively is not a great year for front seven defenders, defensive linemen and linebackers. This is not as deep of a class as it's been in years past. So his visiting this weekend will be the second time in 3 weeks he's got to campus. He'll also take an official visit at the end of May, so that will be incredibly important. We'll be keeping an insanely close eye on him because he really is one of the most prioritized defensive tackles Miami has had in this class. Another top 50 player expected to be down is going to be Edge Jake Krell. Another kid from IMG Academy. In fact, he's exactly the number 50 player in the On3 industry ranking. Miami definitely likes him one heck of a lot. Jason Taylor and Mario Cristobal have both been very involved in his recruitment. I would not expect that to change. He hasn't set official visits yet, but I would imagine that if all goes well, in Miami this weekend, which is supposed to be his only Miami visit of the spring. If all goes well, I really do think there's a good shot that Miami could end up getting an official visit from him. And then you look at some of the other names on the list that are expected to get down that maybe aren't the higher end names, or some of those names that you see whenever you click on the latest on 300. Interior offensive lineman Ryan Moret from Miami Southridge, he's expected to get down. He's been a top Miami priority, and some of the Canes have been on for quite a while now. Another guy expected to get down is going to be interior offensive lineman Joel Irvin. He's a three-star offensive lineman who recently decommitted from Louisville. It feels like Miami is right there. However, right now with Miami's offensive line situation, it does kind of feel like it could be sort of a first come, first serve situation where Miami is kind of waiting to see who's going to be the first to want to go ahead and lock in their spot. So we'll see which guys end up being the first to lock in their spots, along with Ben Congdon on that offensive line. But both of those guys are certainly dudes that we will be keeping a very, very close eye on. And then, heck, you've even got guys like Chancellor Campbell, who's going to take an official visit to Miami. And then you've got Reese Woodrow, who's also going to take an official visit to Miami. I mean, top to bottom, this is a pretty good list. It's a very deep. I'd say it's a pretty deep list overall. But what really kind of stands out to me the most is Miami's getting a ton of offensive linemen on campus. Pretty much any offensive lineman who is someone is going to be visiting this weekend. This is an exceptionally good year for offensive linemen. I just said a second ago, this is not a great year for front seven defenders, defensive linemen, and linebackers. I've had several people tell me that they kind of agree with that. But this is an awesome year for offensive linemen, and Miami is definitely making sure that they prioritize the offensive line in this cycle because, Gary, just as you said, there is going to be some rebuilding that they're going to have to do on the offensive line.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And let's not forget. I don't think you've mentioned him yet. Kenye Pepe, who is a guy that I know that Mario Cristobal covets greatly. He's a massive offensive tackle, maybe the top offensive tackle on the board outside of Jackson Cantwell, and he has this courtship between Cristobal and Pepe has been going on for quite some time, more than a year. This will be his first time on campus in 2025, and I can assure you that he will be getting a lot of attention. Just a mammoth guy. So we are, the thing that's interesting about this day now. This is Miami's chance to really showcase itself because you've got practice in the morning. All these kids are going to be able to attend practice, and they're going to be looking to put their best show on out there, including a lot of scrimmaging. Then after practice, they'll do like a bunch of campus tours as kids make their way to the other side of campus, where you've got this beautiful pool set on a gorgeous lake with palm trees everywhere. Brand new dorms sprouting around the entire Lake Osceola in the middle of campus, the nicest dorms that you'll see on a college campus, the beautiful student center. I mean, this is a backdrop for that really sets Miami apart from a lot of schools, and it's a powerful recruiting opportunity for them. I'm sure they're going to be looking to lock in some commitments after this weekend. And we will be down there on Saturday, and we will be bringing you an enormous amount of coverage from the spring splash out there. And we'll have interviews with all the top players and everything. So Saturday afternoon, you will want to be glued to CaneSport.com, and we will be pounding you with a lot of that coverage. Stephen, you don't want to put pressure on the staff, but with the way this is shaping up with spring practice, starting to draw towards a conclusion, with the recruiting calendar, what it is, I'm not sure. Not a lot of 5 stars in the group that are coming, but there's an enormous number of 4 stars, and this will almost certainly eat. I know there's going to be official visits in the summer, and there's going to be a lot, big weekends there, but this might end up being the biggest weekend of this recruiting cycle.
I would say that as far as unofficial visits go, absolutely, yes, I totally agree with that. I think you could have the argument that some of these official visit weekends are going to be bigger just because obviously you expect some of those to end in commitments. And obviously, some of these fall visits, these game day visits could be significant because, again, those could potentially end in commitments. Right now, there isn't really anyone that I'm seeing on this list that Miami is actively trying to pressure into committing. They are not, putting their foot down and trying to force an early commitment because I think that the staff is very, very keenly aware that if you pressure a kid to commit, you kind of try to force a commitment this early. It absolutely sets you up to potentially lose that kid later down the line if this isn't a conclusion that he's naturally come to himself. Because if he gives you a verbal commitment, but he's not totally set in stone on that pledge, if it's not a conclusion he naturally came to, or maybe he's not totally ready to lock all the way in, then he's still going to be, checking out some of these other places. He's still going to give some of these other programs a very legitimate shot. So if a kid comes to Miami and he naturally says, guys, I think I'm finished with my recruiting process. I think I finally got to the place where I recognize that I am ready to go ahead and commit. And he's a guy that Miami wants. Miami will absolutely take that commitment. No questions asked. But right now, Miami is not trying to force the issue with anyone on this list, unless those guys are absolutely ready. Now, I still do think that there are a couple of guys that Miami could potentially be close with. I've heard that Jontavius Wyman and Cortez Redding might be getting back down this weekend. I haven't been able to actually confirm it or not, but those are two defensive backs out of Jonesboro High School in Georgia that I've heard that Miami feels very good about. It kind of sounds like the Hurricanes might be getting close to potentially sealing the deal there. I've said for a while, I think Miami is hands down the biggest threat to Georgia to possibly flip Jontavius Wyman. I also think that Miami's in a pretty good spot for Cortez Redding. I'm not ready to enter an RPM or anything like that, but I absolutely do believe there's a very good chance that Cortez Redding could end up a member of this year's recruiting cycle. So we'll see how things kind of play out there, but those could be guys who could be, kind of close. And if they do end up coming to Miami this weekend, I'm not saying that I would expect it, but I don't think it would exactly blow me away if one of them suddenly said, "Hey, I do think I'm ready to go ahead and pull the trigger." Um, this is still going to be an absolutely huge recruiting weekend because a lot of parents are going to be coming down too. Carson Sneed, the four-star Tennessee tight end commit, his parents are going to be coming down. Another guy who's going to be, or another guy whose parents are going to be coming down is going to be Brett Collegiate. Like I said earlier, he might be the top interior offensive lineman on Miami's board this year. Hurricanes, I think, are in a pretty good spot, but it's really important that they keep chipping away at everyone. Not only Brett, but his parents as well, and that's why his parents are going to be coming down. I do think that this is going to be really big on a number of fronts. However, I would say that, I wouldn't exactly go into the weekend expecting that it's going to end in commitments because, like I keep saying, Miami is not really trying to pressure anyone into making a decision unless they feel like they are absolutely ready.
All right, and we have a story on the website this morning that breaks all this down for you guys. Outlines all the top kids that are going to be visiting, gives you a little bit of information on them. So make sure that you check that out. And also, I mentioned earlier spending your day Saturday afternoon at CaneSport.com to get all your coverage, and your subscriptions allow us to do what we do every single day. And I encourage anybody that is not yet a subscriber to CaneSport, please come on over and you can test drive the site for $1 for a week and check it out. You're going to like it. We got a great community of fans on the message boards. We got a great staff that's pounding it every single day to bring you guys great coverage. So get on over to CaneSport.com and become a member if you have not done so in the past. And like I said, we do have a breakdown on all the visitors this weekend on the website, but that's not all that we have. Miami had their 8th spring practice on Thursday, and we brought you guys a ton of coverage. We had a lot of video of the day's work, photo gallery, news and notes from the practice field, and several post-practice updates with the team. So check out all of that coverage on the website at the moment. We also have other recruiting stories that are on the site. We got a story on Kenya Pepe, who I mentioned earlier. You could check out what he's saying in advance of his visit. We talked to IMG Academy Consensus Top 100 Edge, Jay Cruel. You can see what he has to say. Jacob Thomas, a 4-star wide receiver from Charles Flanagan High School in Pembroke Pines. He got a Miami offer after a visit over the weekend. Find out where things stand now. We have a story with Milton, Georgia on 300, 2027 tight end Grant Haviland. He knows plenty about Miami because Miami signed Milton graduate Luke Nickel in the 2025 cycle and gave Nickel's tight end Grant Haviland an offer. So he'll be taking a closer look at the Hurricanes as well here on his second visit to South Florida. So a ton for you to sink your teeth into. Practice, big recruiting weekend. Steven, I know you are ultra fired up. You know, I'm going to say it Steven Wagner style. You are really, 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 really excited about this weekend, aren't you?
I'm that many reallys and then one more really excited. I would say I'm that really excited.
You're so excited. I'm going to whip out. I got these new, Shodell glasses, to put on when Matt says something good on the show. So just to put an exclamation point on how excited you are for this weekend, I figure I'll whip these out for a minute. But
all right, now take them off before I have a seizure.
Now I'm going to take them off before you go blind or whatever. But anyway, so that's going to conclude our show for this morning. Hope you've enjoyed this edition of Good Morning CaneSport. For Stephen Wagner, I'm Gary Ferman. Have a great day. Have a great weekend, everybody. Remember, CaneSport.com, Saturday afternoon and evening for all your coverage on the Spring Splash on campus. And we'll see you next time.